You're listening to the Bear Necessities podcast, the podcast all about Coventry Bears Rugby League. On this week's show, we join up for a special episode with our friends at Wolfcast Toronto. We hear about what got them into rugby league, what they've got up to on their tour of the UK. We find out which of us knows more about our respective city, and there's also a great prize for you to win if you listen right to the end of this episode. Here we go. Yes, welcome to this week's episode of Bear Necessities. I'm one of your hosts, Dave, and don't forget you can follow us at CovBears Podcast on Twitter, and you can subscribe in Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, Stitcher, all of those places. You will hear Craig's voice very shortly, but just a quick intro from me. Now obviously there was no Bears game this weekend because of a Challenge Cup, so we had one prepared in the bag already. A couple of weeks ago, when we went down to Allgolds to watch the Bears, we were joined in the clubhouse there by our new friends from the Wolfcast Toronto podcast, who were over here on a bit of a UK tour, and we managed to meet up and record a joint episode, which is what you're about to hear. So it's a great show, lots of chat about Toronto, we quiz each other on our respective cities, and if you keep listening to the end of the show, you will have a chance of winning some very special signed Toronto Wolfpack merchandise. But that's enough chat from me. We'll be back next week when the League One Shield gets back underway. We'll be back with our regular show. But for now, enjoy this special episode with our new Canadian friends. Okay, so I'm very pleased to introduce a slightly different section to the show this week. Craig and I are currently sat around a table with two of our new friends from across the pond. It's Dario and Chris who present the Wolfcast Toronto podcast. Guys, how are you doing? Welcome to UK.
Doing great, and thank you so much for having us on. This is Dario.
Thank you very much. We look forward to being here. It's going to be a great game.
So what made you pick, because obviously you're here to watch the Wolfpack playing Keighley, but what made you pick coming to Allgolds Bears?
Well, originally started to come out to just see one Wolfpack game, and it felt like such a shame to just come over for one game, so we decided to do two. And then we decided, well, since we're doing two, let's fill up with as much rugby league as we can. But one in particular, the reason why we wanted to do this one is out of the teams that came over from from the UK over to Toronto, personally speaking, two of the best teams in terms of their attitude was the Allgolds and Coventry. And we were just so happy and thrilled in terms of meeting them that it just seemed to work out perfectly that they were playing against each other this one time.
Yeah, we had the opportunity when they came to Toronto, we went to the York University campus, saw the players there and had a little meeting with Al in there and the environment that he brought to Toronto to play. So, we have a chance to come see them here. We took it.
And you mentioned that it started with one and has snowballed into a lot of matches in your trip. So just for the listeners who perhaps haven't been following your exploits on Twitter, just go through, since you've been over here in the UK together, what matches have you been to see?
Okay, for the sake of time, I'll try and be as quick as possible. We arrived Sunday morning, went to Workington Town to watch the Wolfpack play against them. Monday, we decided to take a day off. Tuesday, we went to, actually, if you're coming over to the UK, you have to see a football game, right? The only one that worked into the schedule, which is Sheffield Wednesday, played in the EFL Cup against Chesterfield, so very thankful to get that opportunity. Wednesday, we went to a more, I don't know if amateur is the right word, but Tier 2 to see Saddleworth, and they played against Lee East. And then finally, we decided to take on some Super League action. So Thursday night, we were at Wakefield as they hosted Leeds Rhino. Quite the upset from what I understand. And then last night, Chris, where were we last night?
What game?
Yeah.
I can't remember the games.
Oh.
It's been
totally wicked stadium, St. Helens. St. Helens hosting Hull FC. That's right. And here today, tomorrow up to Keighley, right? Not Keighley, right? Keighley.
Correct.
And then we head home on Tuesday morning.
And as a little side note to that, today I will not be at this game fully, but I will be at the Worcester Warriors game. So I'm going to take an A rugby union game as opposed to one of the league games. So hopefully that doesn't offend too many people that are league followers.
No, you'll find a lot of people like both sports. I'm a fan of both sports. I would, on balance, prefer league, I think, but both sports are great.
Well, I said I don't know enough about either one, and apparently the union rules are a lot more involved. But it's a friend of mine that actually plays with David Denton for the Warriors, so I'm going up to meet him. And that'll be a good experience, I hope.
And sorry, I was going to say, is he a Canadian international or something? Or
No, he's from South Africa, but my friend back in Toronto grew up with him, went to high school with him. So he said, I'm going over here. It's like, we started talking about rugby, and he knows him, so I'm going to meet him up and watch the game.
How have you found the crowds being over here compared to what it's like back home for the Toronto games?
For me, it's a little bit different because I think with Toronto, we've been lucky with the amount of fans that show up at the games I think averaging 6,000 to 7,000 people.
Yeah.
And coming here and seeing like even the lower tier games where it's just in a field that pitches about 10 degrees to one side, it slopes, and there's a few thousand, but the environment is still there. It's just less people. Everyone's friendly, and they're home team supporters and the away team supporters. Big difference in the stands. I don't know if you have anything about that, but that's what I found, at least.
For me, obviously, like I said, the size is one, but I think the passion is still there. It's just the difference that I notice is that in Toronto, the passion, I'm not going to say is misplaced, but most of us don't know really what's going on. So we might be cheering at the wrong spot. We're still learning the game, and that's great. The one thing that I do know is that the people here very knowledgeable in terms of very friendly in terms of being asking when we ask questions. They're able to answer us and provide us more information. And the last thing I think is that every single team that we see in the home team, the fans, the referee's always wrong when they make a call against them. That's what I learned.
Well, they always are wrong, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we should probably ask you some questions about rugby league in Canada. Really, do you want to throw any out to start, Craig?
All I would say really is, where do you think the Toronto? Some people call it an experiment. I think they're here to stay. But where do you think that's heading?
I hope it's the tip of the iceberg, because right now that tip looks actually really nice. Like I said, average attendance is about 6,500. I think there's still room to grow. It's not in comparison to some of the other sports where there's 20, 30, 40,000 fans, but I don't think it needs to be in that category either. I think as people get more drawn into it and take a chance on rugby league, I think like Chris and I, you just can't help but fall in love with it. So what I'm looking and hoping to see, obviously I'm not any plan makers, but I would love to see a team, for example, in Montreal, and then Boston, New York, teams that not only geographically fairly close to Toronto, and by close I do mean like a 4 or 5 hour drive, nothing like the UK, but teams that or cities that we have normal natural rivalries with, because I think that will certainly add something to the sport and then expand that way.
I hope it expands, but I don't think it's going to do it this year or in the next couple years.
Yeah.
I want to see, how the city takes to it if rugby catches on as much as it has. There's more fans than I realized in the city. I see, as the more I interact with the fans and things, there's people that are following rugby or new to it. You see young kids getting involved in it, and the Wolfpack doing it right, where they're starting with the younger schools, the 5, 6, 7-year-olds, already starting them in rugby. And I saw it here, where before the games, they have 5, 6, 7-year-olds playing a little rugby game at halftime, tackling each other and really kind of playing. And you won't see that in Toronto, at least not yet.
Because your president, when he first discovered rugby league, his thoughts were something along the lines of, this is the most Canadian sport that Canada doesn't play. Isn't that how he said it? Like, so what is it that attracts you as Canadians to rugby league? Is it the physicality? Is it the skill, the speed, or is it all of the things?
For myself, I like the skill and the speed.
Yeah.
You don't see any other game out there that's constantly for 40 minutes that the players are all out, and you see them at the end of, well, even 10 minutes into game, they're already soaked, they're sweating, they're exhausted, and they keep going. The physicality, it's still a little nerve-wracking to hear them crunch each other on the field. I think our coach said it once, where he said it's like mini car crashes over and over again when they collide into each other, and that's something I've never seen before, without gear, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think from a Canadian perspective, one thing that I've known was that Toronto, specifically, they tend to like their athletes to have a bit of grit to them. Yes, we love our superstars, but names you might not be familiar with it. In basketball, there's a junkyard dog, for example, or in ice hockey, we had Ty Domi. Trying to think of a colloquialism that we use, they're the lunch pail gang. They come in, clock in, work their batushkas off, and then clock out. That's what they're kind of players. And it's like every single rugby league player is like that. They come in there and they put their effort and they give it their all, and Toronto fans just eat that up.
Cool.
So we know that you guys have a quiz section on your show. Is it I know more about rugby than you? Is that the title?
That's what it's trying to be. It's
Okay.
not getting quite there yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
So we thought we'd adapt that for the visit of you guys and the appearance on our show. So we've got I know more about Coventry than you do. So how do you feel about that? Is it?
We'll give it a go.
I
I'm
think
challenging you.
probably do know more about Coventry than us, but
Well, I should hope we know more Coventry about it. So 3 questions each. I don't know how you want to do it. Do you want to do a question at a time, or do you want to do 3 in a row?
One at a time.
one by one.
One by
He
one.
can start. Dario can start.
Okay.
Oh, thanks a lot.
No
Put me
problem.
on the spot.
Okay, so there's going to be one question that is a true or false question, one question that is testing your knowledge of Coventry sports teams, and one question pertinent to the Coventry Bears and to Craig and his family in particular, as you will discover. So we'll start off with a true or false round because you've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So do you want question 1 or 2?
Question 1.
True or false? Chuck Berry recorded his number 1 hit, My Ding-a-Ling, at a Coventry dance hall.
I'm going to say false.
It's true.
Oh,
It's true.
The sad thing is, I'm a huge Chuck Berry fan, and I knew that.
Well,
Yes, I chose one on purpose. Yes.
okay, so to take the lead, true or false? The first tank, the first traffic indicators for cars, and the first dumper truck were all built in Coventry.
That's false.
It's true.
It's true.
Very proud motor
Wow.
heritage in Coventry.
I knew it had a racing history and racing heritage. I didn't know it went that far back.
There's also a variety of engines in Coventry, I think you were saying.
Yeah, the jet engine was invented in Coventry. The first prototype jet engine was tested actually about 5 minutes from where I live.
Wow.
Yeah.
I do know that Jaguar is very big
Yeah.
in Coventry, and on a sad note, that during World War II, because of a lot of the things that were built here, that it was
why
one
it
of
was
the
a
areas,
target,
the
yeah.
target for it to be bombed. Yeah.
And also for another fun fact, transport related to Coventry, apparently all bicycles descend from an invention that first happened in Coventry. as
Safe
well.
cycle.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
You see, you have done your research.
have done
No,
research.
I know some things without doing research.
Okay, so we're 0-0 after first round.
That's not surprising.
Good start. So,
Sounds like I know more about rugby than you. Suarez.
so second question, I'm going to read you 3 animals, okay? 2 of which are genuine Coventry sports teams. One of them is a red herring. So you need to tell me which one is not a real Coventry sports team.
Okay.
So again, do you want set 1 or set 2?
I'll go with set 1 again.
Set 1. So your 3 are bees, wasps, and hornets.
I believe bees for sure are one of them. And there's something to do with a sting, and I don't know. Wasps. I'm going to say bees and wasps. Are
So
the
you're
two-
saying that the fake one is the hornets?
Correct.
Correct, you have a point.
Correct, well done.
Although they did, strangely, they did used to be a Coventry Hornets, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
Craig?
I was on a bit of research that I've done recently. There used to be a Coventry Rugby League team called the Coventry Hornets. So now defunct, but yeah. So one of the bigger sports teams in Coventry is the Wasps, who've recently moved to Coventry. They're the rugby union team, and they play at the Ricoh Arena.
Okay.
So to equalise,
Alright.
your 3, you got to tell me the one that isn't
The
true.
red herring.
Got the dragons, the raptors, and the sphinx.
I'm gonna go with, strangely enough, the Raptors as being fake.
Correct. Well done. The Dragons are a rugby league team. Have lots of former Bears players involved, and the Sphinx are a non-league football team.
Okay, I knew the Dragons. I didn't know what the Sphinx were, but
Isn't there a Canadian team called the Raptors?
We're not going to comment on that.
Okay, touched a nerve there. We should probably move on. So that's 1-1 going into a final round. So the final round of questions, as I mentioned, is to do with the Cathcart family. So Craig and his brother were both part of the starting lineup in Coventry Bears' first game.
Which was actually played in Worcester.
Yes,
So
in a weird.
a few miles down the road from here.
So the question for each of you is going to be, how many tries did Craig score, and how many tries did his brother James score? So one of you gets to take Craig as a guess, and the other one gets to take James. So who do you want to guess for?
I'm going to take James because
Craig's here.
Yeah, and he can. And he's within punching distance. I'm going to say James and 1.
Okay. What should we reveal the answer after their guesses or before? What do you think?
No, let's reveal the answer.
Okay.
So the answer was 3. A hat trick.
So Craig.
I mean, good for him, bad for me.
So Craig saw his brother score a hat trick. How many do you think Craig scored?
Now, did Craig show him up, or is Craig the lesser skilled rugby player?
Probably the lesser skilled rugby player. Yeah,
that could
That's
be throwing off
helping.
entirely, though. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, he could be doing that.
Yeah. I'm going to say you scored a hat trick as well.
Well done.
Wow. We have a winner. Well done.
Good job on
Congratulations, Chris.
So yes, Chris wins. I mean, obviously, if you'd been listening to previous episodes of Bare Necessities, you would have known that anyway. But anyway, we'll let you off on that.
Well, we did. It's just that there's so much knowledge going on this week and we've traveled how many now? Close to 800 miles in less than a week. So we're a little exhausted.
Isn't that as an excuse?
Yes,
I
I
didn't
am.
say that.
Yeah.
But I also didn't lose.
Yeah.
So now we have some questions for the two of you.
Okay. Good.
About
That's
Toronto.
good. Okay.
Now they're not all sports related, so we'll just try and see, and we'll split them up as well, 3 and 3.
Okay.
I wish I'd read some Wikipedia entries before we come down here.
I know. I spent all last night. I was dead certain you're going to come up with something about hockey because I do know about the Blazers. I do know that they won 4 championships in the NAHL. I know this
There's
stuff.
no points for showing
obvious.
off. You've already lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
fine.
too obvious, like as if we're going to ask Canadians about ice hockey. Come on.
Okay. So why don't you go ahead? And who wants to go first?
Craig can go first.
Okay, this one's fairly simple, I guess, about Toronto. And who is it? Who is the mayor of Toronto?
Oh, wasn't it? It's not the guy that got done for doing drugs and things, is it? It's a different mayor now.
He was he was a celebrity mayor.
I have to say, I don't know. I've heard of the guy that was previously the previous mayor, but I have no idea now.
Yeah, that was the celebrity mayor, let's call him.
The answer?
John Tory.
Oh. I should have read Wikipedia.
I feel like this is going to be 0-0, I think.
Well, no, you have a sports-related question.
Okay.
Name 4 of the 7 Toronto sports team, not including the Wolfpack.
I would have got that one.
The Blue Jays are Toronto.
That's 1.
Well, that might have been a question. He didn't answer that way. Yeah.
Give it to him.
I'm guessing by your reaction to the word Raptors earlier that Raptors might also be a Toronto team that you don't support.
No, I actually support him quite fully. It's just I wanted to keep it secret away
I
from the
told him
question.
not to wear his Raptors jersey today, too.
I think you should ask him which sport it is.
Well, the Blue Jays are baseball. The Raptors basketball? No, that's wrong. Okay.
No, he said
Be
that.
a little more confident. That's right.
The Raptors basketball.
That's
Right.
And then there's, you want 4.
Correct.
Toronto FC, as in a football
That's
association.
Actually,
football.
That counts.
By fluke, yes, you got a third one.
They should have had a more imaginative name.
Yeah, blokes in football, they're never very imaginative.
I feel like I've heard the name of an amateur rugby league team, but I've completely forgotten it. I'm going to have to pass. I'm going to have to...
Oh, so
Well,
close.
You have to at least make a guess about
Okay,
an ice
make a
hockey
guess.
team.
I mean,
Because
it
it
is
is
Canada.
Yeah.
I know the answer to this.
The Maple Leafs.
Yeah, he's pretending. No,
Oh,
he's pretending
walking
now.
us. Yeah, yeah.
He knows the answer.
He's messing
to
with
this.
us?
That is
Yeah.
absolutely correct.
Oh,
You
I
got
thought- I thought they were
Do you know the
Montreal.
other ones?
No.
Okay. There's also the Toronto Argonauts, which is part of the Canadian Football League,
Okay.
and our football,
The
not
CFL.
correct. And finally, the Toronto Rock, which play arena lacrosse.
Cool.
So those are the 7 teams, and the Wolfpack obviously now joins them.
I feel like I looked out on the questions there, Craig. Sorry.
Yeah, I suspect there might be a little bit of play going on there. All right, this is more, I guess, a local current thing. Which Toronto native, specifically from Richmond Hill, stunned the tennis world this week? Hint, he's also a Wimbledon junior champion.
I have no idea. Canadian tennis players.
Yeah, most people don't know Canadian tennis players.
Wasn't Michael Chang? Was he Canadian? No.
He was, but this one was in the news very recently.
He wasn't a tennis player, though.
Is this the guy who beat Nadal this week by any chance?
What was he called? Was it Eisner or something? No, no idea. I'm afraid.
I have a feeling your partner knows the answer.
No, I don't. I don't. I just know the story. Sorry.
I don't know the answer. I'm afraid.
Denis Shapovalov.
I should have known that.
But you are correct. He did defeat Nadal in the Rogers Cup in Canada. Okay. So, geography. Since we already know you know a lot about sports, we're going to go to geography question type here.
Okay.
In terms of area size, how many times bigger is Toronto than Coventry?
Ooh. 3 times bigger.
So close, except you need to double that. Wow. It's 6 times bigger. In terms of area, Coventry is approximately 98 kilometers squared, and Toronto is 640 kilometers squared.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a lot bigger.
So it's just to give you an idea in terms of when you say, you're from Toronto, there's a lot of area to cover.
In all fairness, though, Coventry probably has 6 times more, at least, rugby knowledge and rugby history than Toronto does, or maybe perhaps Canada as a whole.
So what's the score leading into the final round?
It's 1-0 to me going into the
1-0 to
final
Dave.
round.
All right, this one's a little bit of history for Canada. Canada celebrated its birthday last month. July, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is Canada?
Again, I should know this. Was it a big birthday?
We'd like to think so.
It was
It
a
was
big
a-
birthday,
yeah.
wasn't it? Was it 275?
Wow. No.
No.
Canada's not that old. It's only 150.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we wanted to throw that question in there, is because you have rugby teams that are older than Canada. So just to give you an idea, like, we're getting involved in the sport and go, wow, there's all this history. Anyway, wait, there's all this history.
Well, Coventry played Hunslet a couple of weeks ago, and they were formed in 1868 or something.
Wow.
So,
And 1867. So it's like, yeah, exactly. We're right there.
A sports team older than our country.
Speaking of rugby league, final question.
Okay.
Okay.
I will say they both better know this answer.
In the entire history, because we are talking about history, in the entire history of rugby league, there's only been one time where a team from Coventry has faced the Toronto Wolfpack. What was the score in the game?
It was Wolfpack 56, Bears 12.
it was
You can confer on
54 16.
Okay.
We both failed.
And you're both right. It was 54 to 12.
Right.
Oh, and sorry, just want to repeat that one more time, just make sure that all the listeners know. It was 54 to 12. For who? Who won again?
Hey, we got closer than Barrow did, so
A lot closer than Barrow did. Sorry to any Barrow fans out there. But yeah, no, I just wanted to
And
throw
the
that
Bears
out.
give you a scare in the first half. Definitely.
Very much, very much. That game was quite exciting. It was fantastic to watch and be a part of.
great. So by fluke, I marginally know more about Toronto than you, Craig. Although I
Yeah.
feel like if the
I-
questions had been inverse, you'd have won 3-0.
Yeah, I
So.
feel the questions were slightly weighted towards you, but I'll accept defeat graciously.
It was a flip of a coin the way it happened there, unfortunately.
Well, guys, this has been great to catch up. Have you got any questions for us?
We don't have a question, but I do have a little bit of a story, if that's okay.
Go for it.
When Chris and I first started and we did a podcast, after a couple of weeks, our very first guest that we had that was of some prominence, we feel anyways, was Alan Robinson. Boomer.
Yeah.
And he was so kind to us in terms of not only making time for us, two people, to come up there and sit and help get our podcast going, but he inspired in the sense that the right kind of attitude about helping to grow rugby league. And one of the things that he did, which will never be forgotten to us, was he gave us a Coventry rugby ball so that we could help, do a contest with it, help promote rugby and help promote Wolfcast Toronto. So in turn, from his kindness, we'd like to share that with you. So we'd like to give you a small token to hopefully maybe that you can do a contest with and help grow the Bare Necessities podcast as well.
Thank you
So
very much.
if I reach into this bag over here. Now, yes, it is Toronto Wolfpack related, and we don't want anybody to, whoever wins, change their allegiance. They still root for the Bears. That's perfectly fine. But we just want to be your second favorite team.
Well, you already are.
So what we have here is a Toronto Wolfpack scarf, which has been nicely signed by the entire team.
Wow.
So, and that includes Ryan Barley, Fui, and Craig Hall. So please have fun with
Coach,
this.
I believe, yeah.
And the
I
coach,
think the coach as well, yeah.
So enjoy this. You can pick whatever question you want in terms of you feel necessary. Don't make it about Toronto. Let's be nice to your fans. But here you go.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
You're very welcome. And, yeah.
Enjoy the rest of your trip. Hope the
Thank you very
Wolfpack win
much.
tomorrow for you.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, anything that you would suggest to us to see?
We have
I know we don't really have much of a free schedule, but
we have 1 day left, which we're going to go see the archives. So
at Huddersfield University.
at Huddersfield from the George Hotel. So we're going to see that. But we have Monday. So any suggestions?
I would suggest, if you can, to go across to Liverpool to see the waterfront at Liverpool. They've got the Beatles Museum there. They've got tons of museums on the waterfront, and you can ferry across the Mersey and do all that. It's a very good city to visit. It's quite compact, so you can do it all in one day.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a perfect suggestion.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and just quickly before we go, where can people listen to your podcast in case they want to check you out?
Our web, podcast is on wolfcast.ca is our website, and you can follow us on Twitter at wolfcast.
See you.
Great. Guys, thanks a lot.
Cheers,
Great to
thank
meet
you
you.
very much.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed that slightly different episode of Bare Necessities. Now, you're probably wondering, how can I get my hands on that signed Toronto Wolfpack scarf? I know it's probably the question on your lips. Well, it's very easy. All you need to do is enter the competition. And to be in with a chance of winning that signed Toronto Wolfpack scarf, signed by the entire squad, remember, all you need to do is answer the following question. What is the name of the Toronto Wolfpack home stadium? And if you know the answer, then email covbearspodcast@gmail.com before the 15th of September, and you will be in with a chance of winning that scarf. So once again, what is the name of the Toronto Wolfpack home stadium? If you know that, email it along with your name and your email address, which we'll get anyway, to covbearspodcast@gmail.com before the 15th of September, and we will see which one of you is a lucky winner. Bare Necessities is a podcast about the Coventry Bears. It's an independent show, but it wouldn't be possible without the support and the encouragement of the club. So huge thanks to everyone at the Bears for helping us out. Come and say hi to us on Twitter, where we're at CovBearsPodcast. Tweet Craig your questions using hashtag AskMrC, and let us know if you want to have your roar heard. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher or wherever else. And if you like the show, leave us a rating or review and spread the word to anyone else who loves the Bears. Bare Necessities is brought to you by me, Dave Musson, and Craig Cathcart, and our theme music is by my band Wave. See you next time.